It's Wednesday, November 17th, 2010. I'm Kevin McShann, and this is the McShann Sports Beat Report. There's a palpable excitement running through the streets of Atlanta and among all Braves fans because they received an early Christmas present on Tuesday when the Florida Marlins agreed to trade All-Star second baseman Dan Uggla to the Braves for utilityman Omar Infante and reliever Mike Dunn. ESPN's Baseball Insider Jerry Krasnick explains what sort of an impact that Uggla will have in the middle of the Braves' batting order and where the Marlins go from here in their rebuilding process.
ESPN Baseball Insider Jerry Krasnick brought us the news. He joins us now. Hey, Jerry, what does a trade do for the Braves?
Well, it gives them a huge right-handed presence in the middle of their order, something that they really lacked last season. They were out looking on the market at some guys like B.J. Upton and Matt Kemp and some of the outfielders, and those guys are pretty hard to get, but Dan Uggla is on the verge of free agency. So he wasn't going to sign with Florida, and they were able to get him at what most people feel like was a pretty good price. I think the industry consensus is that the Braves really made out ahead on this deal.
So that was the main motivation for Florida, to try to get something, because we're not going to keep him next year?
Yeah, I think so. They were going to give him a pretty good deal, but the reports were that he wanted 5 years and $71 million, and they weren't prepared to give that. So, the question is, did they get enough in return? And Infante is a really nice player. He can play a lot of places. Mike Dunn is a big left-handed arm, and they're trying to rebuild their bullpen. But, to give up Dan Uggla, just a second baseman who hits 30-plus home runs a year, that leaves a big void in the middle of their batting order.
Mark Bowman, the Braves beat reporter for MLB.com, says that he was surprised that the Braves were able to acquire Uggla for such a pedestrian price.
It was always an attractive thing. Uggla, there was no doubt. He was a guy who be a perfect fit, right-handed bat, sit in the middle of the lineup. You don't know whether he'll be here for more than 1 year or not, but he does have family in Tennessee. He seems to have he's always hit well here at turf field. Everything seems to be right. Even when I heard some stuff this afternoon, I'm thinking they've got to give up more than Infante and Mike Dunn. I'm not going to, discount what Infante meant to the Braves, as the versatile utility player. He's valuable to any club, but when you can get a Dan Uggla, put that kind of right-handed bat in the middle of your lineup and give up an Omar Infante and a left-handed reliever who, Mike Dunn does have potential, but you do this deal every day. I was surprised that they didn't have to give up another prospect in this deal. Frank Wren doesn't like to wait around long. He went ahead and got one of his primary need done here in the early part of the offseason once again. They talked about him, and then Freddie talked about how, Dan Uggla was a guy who comes to play hard every day. The kind of production he provides, and, I think that helped. I still, once again, I don't know how confident they were that they could get this deal done because, it gets to a point if the Marlins come and they start asking for Mike Minor and Tehran and some of their other valuable young pitchers, it's a different story. But, I guess, there were some who thought that the Marlins weren't serious about moving Uggla, but it's obvious that they wanted to move him and move him quick. And, This is not to say that it was a horrible deal for the Marlins, but looking at it from this perspective, it does look like a really good deal for the Braves.
In 2010, Uggla had a career year with career highs in batting average, 287, home runs 33, and RBIs 105. The 30-year-old second baseman is a two-time All-Star, and he was a recent recipient of his first Silver Slugger Award. He's averaged 31 home runs during his first 5 seasons in the major leagues. Uggla entered the league in 2006. During that time span, he has established himself as one of the most feared hitters in all of the National League. Since entering the league 5 years ago, he has 154 career home runs, which puts him second among all active National League hitters behind Albert Pujols with 207 home runs. Alfonso Soriano is third with 152. Carlos Lee is fourth with 138. And Matt Holliday is fifth with 136. The Marlins elected to deal Uggla after they couldn't come to terms on a long-term agreement with the second baseman. He made $7.8 million last season, and he is eligible for salary arbitration and can become a free agent at the conclusion of the 2011 World Series. Florida offered Uggla a 3-year contract extension worth $24 million this summer. However, he declined. Earlier this offseason, the Marlins increased their offer to 4 years and $48 million. However, Uggla remained persistent in his pursuit of his $71 million figure over 5 years. Marlins president of baseball operations, Larry Beinfest, said that Uggla was a tremendous player for the Marlins. He thanked him for his service. However, he said that the team had to do what was in their best interest. The deal just didn't work out. We just made the decision. Dan's a great guy. He understands. He's a great story in a lot of ways, from where he came from 5 years ago to where he is today, he said. Terry Browse, Uggla's agent, spoke on behalf of his client, who is in Mexico on a Nike tour and unable to discuss the trade, says that his client was disappointed that a long-term agreement couldn't be worked out in Florida, but is excited about the opportunity to continue his career with the Braves. He loves Florida and wanted to remain a Marlin. I'm sure he's saddened about not being a Marlin anymore, but he'll be excited about being a Brave, Bross said. Braves Executive Vice President and General Manager Frank Wren spoke to MLB Network about acquiring Uggla, what he brings to the team, and what his arrival means for players such as Martin Prado, Freddie Freeman, and Chipper Jones.
Frank Wren, you identified a need, and you went out and you filled that need. Very impressive. What does he do for you guys in the middle of that order?
Well, over the last few years, the one thing we've been missing is a big right-handed presence in the middle of our lineup. And that was when we got together with our scouts in October. The number one thing on our list was to try to find a right-handed hitter that could give us 30 home runs. And Dan Uggla is the guy that, the last 4 years, he's hit 30-plus home runs. He brings an intensity and an intangible. He wants to be out there every day, a grittiness. When talking to our players, the Brian McCanns and Chipper Jones this evening after making the deal, they were ecstatic. They're ecstatic what he brings to our team and how he changes the middle of our lineup.
They certainly know him well. They've played against him now for 5 or 6 years. You know what he turned down in Florida, so you know it comes with a price. Where do things stand with him in terms of forging a long-term relationship?
Well, unfortunately, Dan's on a trip to Mexico, and so we haven't even had a chance to talk. But I just suffice to say that we're interested in keeping Dan here. But I think it's probably appropriate that he gets to know us and we get to know him, and he sees what we're all about. I think he knows, being in the division and playing us as much as he has, it's going to be nice to not have him hitting home runs against us going forward. But he's a key piece for us.
It not only changes your lineup, but it changes the defensive alignment. Tell us about Uggla and Prado and Chipper and how they all fit in.
Well, Chipper obviously is coming back from the ACL, and speaking with him tonight, he's making good progress. We think he's going to be ready come opening day. But our backup plan would be that Martin Prado would play third if Chipper's not quite ready. And the other thing is Martin has played primarily left field in winter ball, and he's played up until last year. He's played every year. So I think going to spring training would be Martin Prado in left field and Chipper at third, and then our young kid Freddie Freeman at first.
Freddie Freeman, that's a name that we've been hearing a lot of. Before I let you go, and I have you here, so I got to ask you, have you tried at all to talk Billy Wagner out of retirement? Seriously, because I think people want to know how a guy on top of his game could go out.
Well, I mean, Billy had such a special year for us, and I think our young players owe him such a debt of gratitude. The Kimbrels and the Venters for what he gave to them over this course of his last year. And yeah, I've had those conversations. Our CEO Terry McGurk just happened to be in Charlottesville last weekend, and he called Billy, and Billy's pretty satisfied staying on the farm. And so I don't know if we're going to get that done.
The Braves took a major step in the right direction on Tuesday in solidifying their lineup for 2011 with the addition of Uggla. This is a player which will provide them instant credibility and power in the middle of their batting order. The Braves made the playoffs a season ago, but failed to advance partly because of a lack of power in the middle of their lineup. With the addition of Uggla, that problem has been rectified. It will be tricky to get him to agree to a long-term extension, but that's down the road. Now, Freddie Gonzalez, who managed Uggla in Florida and now will take over for the legendary Bobby Cox, has to be smiling from ear to ear, because after all, this is a win-win for both sides. Kevin McShann, Sports Beat, report.